Welcome back to the channel, Rare Coins History, coin lovers and treasure hunters. Today we're going to dive into a small but powerful piece of American history, a coin that has been in the pockets, purses, and piggy banks of millions of people for decades, the Lincoln 1-cent penny from 1978. At first glance, it might look like just another ordinary penny, but as we've discovered time and time again, the truth is that even the smallest coins can carry extraordinary stories, and sometimes, incredible value. Stick with me until the very end, because I'm going to reveal how much a special 1978 penny could actually be worth. It's a number you don't want to miss. Let's begin with the historical backdrop. By 1978, the Lincoln penny had already been in circulation for nearly 70 years. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the penny was the very first U.S. coin to feature the portrait of a real historical person. Victor David Brenner's famous design of Lincoln on the obverse became iconic, and by the late 1970s, the penny was one of the most recognizable coins in the world. On the obverse, you'll see the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln facing right. Above his head is the word Liberty, and in front of his face, the date, 1978. Depending on where the coin was minted, you might also notice a small mint mark just below the date. A D for Denver, an S for San Francisco, or no mint mark at all, which means the coin was struck in Philadelphia. Those tiny letters make a huge difference in determining rarity and collector interest, so always check carefully. Flip the coin over and you'll find the classic reverse design introduced in 1959 to celebrate Lincoln's 150th birthday, the image of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., created by Frank Gasparo. What makes this design so fascinating is that if you look closely at the base of the memorial, you can actually see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside, just like on the real monument. Above the memorial are the words United States of America, with E pluribus unum in smaller text, and below, the denomination 1 cent. It's a timeless design that Americans use daily for decades. Now, what makes the 1978 Lincoln penny interesting is that it came from an important period right before a major change in U.S. coinage. Just a few years later, in 1982, the mint would switch from making pennies out of mostly copper to a copper-plated zinc composition. But in 1978, these pennies were still struck in the traditional bronze alloy, 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. That high copper content gives these older pennies a richer color, heavier weight, and a different feel compared to modern cents. It also makes them more desirable to collectors, since copper itself has intrinsic value. So what about rarity? While millions of pennies were minted in 1978 across all mints, the real value lies in condition and in unique varieties. Circulated pennies from 1978 are usually only worth face value, but when you find one in pristine mint state, especially graded by a professional service, the value can skyrocket. Collectors prize coins with sharp details, clean surfaces, and no scratches or wear. A penny that has been kept untouched in a collection for decades will always stand out compared to one that's been rolling around in pockets for years. Even more exciting are the error coins and varieties. Some 1978 Lincoln cents have been discovered with striking errors such as off-center strikes, double die obverse, or filled mint marks. These types of mistakes happen during the minting process and make the coin unique. Collectors are willing to pay huge premiums for these one-of-a-kind errors because they tell a story about how coins are made and how rare imperfections slip through the cracks. Another factor that increases the appeal of the 1978 penny is the San Francisco proof issues. Proof coins were specially made for collectors with polished dies and planchets, giving them a mirror-like finish and sharp details. These proofs, especially if preserved in their original government packaging, are always worth more than circulation strikes. Some even feature cameo contrast, where Lincoln's portrait looks frosted against a shiny background, making them highly sought after. Now think about this for a moment. How many times has a penny slipped through your fingers, never to be thought of again? Yet among those countless coins, there might be one special 1978 penny hiding that could change everything. The thrill of coin collecting is that sometimes the most ordinary-looking pieces hold extraordinary secrets, and now we come to the part you've been waiting for, the value. While most 1978 pennies are worth just a cent, some rare examples in exceptional condition, or with rare minting errors, have been known to reach an astonishing value. Believe it or not, a top-quality specimen of the 1978 Lincoln penny has been valued at an incredible $80,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $80,000 for a single penny that most people would overlook without a second thought. Today we're stepping back into the 1960s to explore a fascinating little coin that carries much more history than most people realize, the Lincoln 1-cent penny from 1966. At first glance, it might just look like another ordinary penny, the kind you've seen thousands of times in your lifetime. But when we start peeling back the layers of history, design, and collector demand, you'll see why the 1966 penny has become one of the most interesting pieces for collectors. And stay with me until the very end, because I'll reveal just how much one of these rare pennies has been valued at. It's a number you won't believe. To understand the importance of the 1966 Lincoln penny, we have to look at what was happening in America at the time. The mid-1960s was a period of big changes for U.S. coinage. Just 1 year earlier, in 1965, the United States Mint removed silver from circulating dimes and quarters due to rising silver prices and a nationwide coin shortage. People were hoarding coins, especially silver ones, and the mint was under immense pressure to keep up with demand. Because of this shortage, mint marks were temporarily eliminated from coins between 1965 and 1967 to discourage hoarding and speculation. That's why you won't see a mint mark on the 1966 Lincoln penny, no matter where it was struck. Every penny from this year looks the same in that respect. On the obverse of the coin, you'll find Victor David Brenner's classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design first introduced in 1909 and still beloved today. Lincoln is shown facing right, a solemn yet powerful image that made history as the very first portrait of a real person on a U.S. coin. The inscriptions on the obverse include Liberty on the left side, the motto "In God We Trust" across the top, and the year 1966 beneath Lincoln's bust. Even without a mint mark, this side of the coin holds all the familiar features that collectors recognize instantly. Flip the coin over, and you'll see the reverse design created by Frank Gasparo, introduced in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This design features the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Look closely at the steps of the memorial, and you'll notice a tiny engraving of Lincoln's seated statue inside, an incredible detail for such a small coin. The inscriptions above read United States of America, with the phrase E pluribus unum in smaller letters just above the memorial, and below it, the denomination 1 cent. This reverse design replaced the wheat ears that had been on the back of the penny from 1909 to 1958, and for many collectors, it marks a more modern era of Lincoln cents. Now let's talk about composition. The 1966 penny was struck in a bronze alloy, 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. These older copper pennies have a heavier feel and a richer color compared to the copper-plated zinc pennies that came later in 1982. That copper content itself adds a layer of collectability, especially as copper prices have gone up over the years. For coin enthusiasts, holding a 1966 penny is like holding a piece of true American copper history, but what really makes the 1966 penny stand out is not just its design or composition, but its context in coin collecting history. Because mint marks were removed between 1965 and 1967, there are number 1966 pennies with D for Denver or S for San Francisco. For newer collectors, this often causes confusion, but for experienced numismatists, it makes the 1966 penny a unique representation of that era when the mint was experimenting and adjusting to coin shortages. Now, when it comes to value, the majority of 1966 pennies that have been circulated are worth just 1 cent. They were minted in huge numbers, and millions are still around today. But as always in coin collecting, the real story begins when you look at condition. A penny that has been heavily circulated, with scratches, nicks, or wear, won't bring more than its face value. But a penny that has been carefully preserved in mint state, with no signs of wear and sharp details, can fetch far more than you might expect. Even more exciting are the error coins. Some 1966 Lincoln cents have been found with striking errors, such as double die obverse where the lettering or date shows noticeable doubling, or off-center strikes that make the coin appear misaligned. These kinds of errors are rare, and collectors are always eager to add them to their collections. Each era coin tells a unique story about the minting process, and their one-of-a-kind nature means they can sell for high premiums. Proof coins from 1966 add another dimension of interest. While regular strikes were made for circulation, the mint also produced special proof coins for collectors, with polished dies and planchets to create sharp, mirror-like surfaces. A proof 1966 penny in pristine condition, especially if graded highly by a professional service, can command significant value. Collectors love the contrast between the frosted portrait of Lincoln and the reflective background fields, giving the coin an almost jewel-like appearance. Think about it this way: millions of people use the 1966 penny for everyday purchases without ever realizing that some of those coins might one day be worth a small fortune. That's the beauty of coin collecting, the chance to rediscover treasures hiding in plain sight. Every time you examine a penny from this year, you're not just looking at a piece of metal, you're holding a little fragment of American history from a time when the nation was changing rapidly. And now we arrive at the most exciting part, the potential value. While most 1966 pennies remain common and inexpensive, there are rare examples in flawless condition, or with unique errors, that have amazed collectors and auction houses alike. Some of these special coins have been valued as high as $84,000, yes, you heard that correctly, $84,000 for a single penny from 1966. Today we're turning the clock back to the early 1960s, a time of change and transition in American coinage, to focus on one small but fascinating piece of history, the United States Lincoln 1-cent penny from 1963. At first glance, it's just a copper penny, the kind people carried in their pockets without a second thought. But as collectors know, appearances can be deceiving. Some of these 1963 pennies are far more than pocket change, they're treasures worth serious money. Stay with me until the very end, because I'll reveal just how much one rare example has been valued at, and trust me, it will leave you stunned. Let's set the stage. In 1963, John F. Kennedy was still president, the country was preparing for the civil rights movement to reshape society, and the space race was heating up. Amid all of these historical events, everyday Americans were still carrying the Lincoln cent in their pockets, a coin that had already been circulating for over 50 years. Introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the Lincoln cent was the first U.S. coin to feature the portrait of a real historical figure. Designed by Victor David Brenner, Lincoln's image had already become a national symbol by 1963. On the obverse side of the 1963 penny, you'll find Brenner's famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln, facing right. The design captures Lincoln with a quiet strength, reminding Americans of his leadership during the nation's most trying times. Along the top edge of the coin are the words "In God We Trust," to the left is liberty, and just to the right of Lincoln is the date, 1963. Beneath the date is the mint mark, either a small D for Denver or nothing at all, which means the coin was minted in Philadelphia. Both versions were struck in massive quantities, but as we'll see, condition and errors can turn an ordinary penny into something truly valuable. Turn the coin over, and you'll find the reverse design that defined Lincoln cents from 1909 until 1958, the famous wheat ears, or wheat back as collectors often call it, had been replaced just a few years earlier. By 1963, the Lincoln Memorial reverse, created by Frank Gasparo, was firmly in place. This design shows the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., with every detail carefully engraved, including the tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside, visible if you look closely with magnification. The inscriptions "United States of America" arc across the top, with the national motto "E Pluribus Unum" just beneath it, and the denomination 1 cent at the bottom. This was the design used from 1959 all the way until 2008, making the 1963 cent part of a long and familiar series that many collectors grew up with. Now let's talk about composition. The 1963 penny was made of bronze, with 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This gives it a rich, reddish-brown color and a weight that modern zinc pennies just don't have. For collectors, that high copper content is part of the charm. It makes these coins feel more substantial and connects them to an earlier era of U.S. coinage. So, what makes the 1963 penny stand out for collectors today? After all, tens of millions were minted. The answer lies in condition, varieties, and minting errors. Circulated pennies from 1963 are typically only worth their face value, but once you find one in pristine mint state, the story changes dramatically. Collectors will pay a premium for coins with no scratches, no wear, and sharp, bold details. Coins graded by professional services as MS65 or higher can bring much higher prices, especially if they display attractive toning or a bright red luster. Even more exciting are the error coins. Some 1963 pennies have been found with double dies, where the date or lettering shows visible doubling from a misaligned strike. Others show off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing, or clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is cut off due to a mistake in the blanking process. Each of these errors is unique, and collectors prize them because no two are exactly alike. The rarer the error, the higher the value. Proof coins from 1963 add another layer of appeal. Struck at the San Francisco Mint, these proofs were made with polished dies and planchets, resulting in sharp details and mirror-like surfaces. Proof pennies with deep cameo contrast, where Lincoln's portrait appears frosted against a mirror background, are especially sought after. A proof coin in flawless condition, graded PR 67 or higher, can easily become the centerpiece of a collection. Think about it for a moment. Millions of these coins passed through hands in grocery stores, movie theaters, gas stations, and diners during the early 1960s. Most people never pause to look closely at them. But hidden among those countless pennies are rare survivors, coins kept safe from circulation, coins with minting errors, or coins struck with extra care. Those are the pennies that today can fetch prices you'd never expect for such a small piece of change. And now, here comes the most exciting part, the value. While an ordinary 1963 penny in worn condition is worth just a cent, some rare examples in pristine mint state or with rare minting errors have reached auction prices that are nothing short of breathtaking. In fact, one of the finest known examples of a 1963 Lincoln cent has been valued at an incredible $94,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $94,000 for a single penny. Today we're diving into one of the most talked about coins among collectors, the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1983 with its mint mark. At first glance, this penny may seem like any ordinary cent you'd find at the bottom of a jar, in your wallet, or even lying on the ground. But behind its humble copper-plated surface lies an incredible story of history, minting changes, rare varieties, and the potential for surprising value that has captured the attention of coin collectors all over the world. The year 1983 was an important one in the history of the Lincoln cent. Just 1 year earlier, in 1982, the U.S. Mint had made a major change to the penny's composition. From the early 20th century through 1982, pennies were mostly made of 95% copper, giving them that familiar heavier feel and distinctive reddish-brown color. But due to rising copper prices, the Mint decided to switch the composition to a copper-plated zinc coin, just 2.5% copper with 97.5% zinc inside. This change not only reduced costs for the government but also introduced a new era of pennies, one that still continues today. That makes 1983 one of the very first full years where pennies were struck with this new zinc composition. What makes the 1983 penny especially interesting is the fact that during that early transition period, the Mint faced a number of challenges. With new minting equipment adjustments, design details, and the lighter zinc core, certain errors and variations occurred. These are what collectors seek out, because not all 1983 pennies are created equal. Some were struck with strong, crisp details, while others ended up with doubling, off-center strikes, or even experimental variations. That's why knowing the mint mark on your 1983 penny is so important. Whether it's from Philadelphia with no mint mark, Denver with the D, or San Francisco with the proof-only S, each has its own story, mintage numbers, and potential value. The Denver minted 1983 Lincoln penny is the most commonly found in circulation, but certain rare examples with errors have sold for impressive amounts at auction. A double die reverse, for instance, shows doubling on the lettering and design features, which makes it one of the standout varieties for collectors. The Philadelphia 1983 penny also holds its own value, especially if it has been well preserved in mint state condition. free from scratches, spots, and discoloration. As for the San Francisco proofs, those coins were never meant for circulation, making them rarer in pristine condition and highly sought after by dedicated coin enthusiasts. One of the most fascinating aspects about the 1983 penny is how its value can change dramatically depending on condition. A circulated penny may be worth just a cent, but one in uncirculated condition or with a major error can bring in hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Imagine finding a coin in your pocket change that looks ordinary but turns out to have a double die feature or a minting error. Suddenly that penny is no longer just small change, it's a collector's prize. Collectors are always on the lookout for sharp strikes, strong luster, and unique errors that set a coin apart from the billions of others minted, and this is where the excitement really begins. Because while most 1983 pennies are still worth only face value, there are a handful that have crossed into the realm of rarity, commanding auction prices that turn heads in the numismatic world. It's this sense of possibility that keeps collectors digging through rolls of pennies, examining jars of coins, and hunting through old collections passed down from family members. Each coin has the potential to tell a story, and each one might just be hiding an extraordinary surprise. Think about it, the penny, often overlooked and even discarded, holds the key to history, art, and treasure hunting. From Abraham Lincoln's enduring portrait on the obverse to the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, these coins represent more than just monetary value. They represent continuity in American history, innovation in coin design, and the ever-present thrill of discovery. The 1983 penny is a perfect example of how a seemingly ordinary object can become something truly extraordinary when rarity and demand meet. Now, imagine this: among these coins, a rare 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1983 with its mint mark, preserved in exceptional condition and possibly featuring one of those rare varieties, has been valued by collectors and sold at auction for as much as $80,000. Yes, you heard that right, $80,000 for a single penny that might look like spare change to the untrained eye. Today, we're focusing on the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln penny from the year 1979 with its mint mark. At first glance, a 1979 penny doesn't seem particularly special. After all, millions upon millions of them were produced by the U.S. Mint. You've probably seen them in circulation for decades, tossed them into a jar, or even overlooked them entirely. But the truth is, some of these pennies carry stories of history, design, rare errors, and hidden value that can make collectors' hearts race. And if you happen to have one in the right condition or with the right mint mark, you may be sitting on something far more valuable than just a single cent. The Lincoln penny has been in circulation since 1909, when it was first introduced to honor the 100th anniversary of President Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1979, the design had already been around for 70 years, showing Lincoln's profile on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back, which was first added in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This design remained iconic for decades, making the 1979 penny a part of a long and beloved tradition in American coinage. What sets these coins apart isn't just the design, but the details of their production, the mint marks, and the conditions in which they've survived over the years. In 1979, pennies were still made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving them that heavier weight and distinctive copper color that collectors and everyday people could recognize instantly. It wasn't until a few years later, in 1982, that the composition was changed to a copper-plated zinc coin to save costs. So the 1979 penny belongs to the classic copper era, making it even more appealing to collectors who prefer the older, solid metal coins over the modern lightweight versions. Mint marks play a major role in determining the rarity and value of these coins. In 1979, pennies were struck at 3 different mints: Philadelphia, which traditionally had no mint mark; Denver, which placed a D on its coins; and San Francisco, which struck proof coins marked with an S. The Denver and Philadelphia coins were made for circulation in huge numbers, but collectors keep a sharp eye out for those struck with errors, double dies, or coins that somehow survived in pristine condition. The San Francisco proof pennies were not meant for circulation, so finding one in uncirculated, mirror-like condition is like holding a small piece of minting artistry in your hands. When it comes to errors, the 1979 penny is known to have some fascinating varieties. Collectors are constantly searching for doubled die obverse, where the lettering or the portrait of Lincoln appears doubled due to a mistake during the striking process. There are also examples of off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, and even repunched mint marks where the letter D or S was struck more than once, creating a shadow effect. These rare mistakes, combined with the right mint mark and an excellent grade, can dramatically increase the coin's value on the collector's market. Condition is absolutely key when it comes to determining value. A well-worn 1979 penny that has been in circulation for decades is likely worth only its face value, but a coin in mint state condition, shiny, bright, and without scratches or wear, can bring in much higher prices. Collectors look for coins that are crisp, with strong details in Lincoln's hair and beard, as well as sharp, clear lines on the Lincoln Memorial. Red-colored copper coins, which have retained their original luster without turning brown over time, are especially valuable. Coins graded MS65 or higher can fetch remarkable prices, and proof coins in deep cameo condition are even more sought after. Now, picture this: you're sorting through an old jar of coins, maybe something passed down from a relative or tucked away in a drawer for years. You spot a 1979 penny, check for its mint mark, and realize it's in nearly perfect condition. You take a closer look and notice a possible error, like doubling on the lettering or a repunched mint mark. Suddenly, what seemed like an ordinary penny transforms into a coin worth thousands of dollars. That's the magic of coin collecting. It's part history, part treasure hunt, and part appreciation for the craftsmanship of our nation's money. Collectors across the United States and around the world continue to seek out these gems, bidding on them at auctions, trading them at coin shows, and cherishing them in their collections. The 1979 penny is a reminder that value isn't always about size or denomination. It's about rarity, condition, and the fascinating stories behind each piece. Whether struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, each coin carries a history of its own, and each one has the potential to surprise you. And here's the part that excites collectors the most: among the countless 1979 pennies minted, there are rare examples with unique errors and extraordinary preservation that have shocked the coin community with their value. Believe it or not, one of these 1-cent Lincoln pennies from 1979, with its mint mark and preserved in outstanding condition, has been valued at an incredible $98,000. Do you want me to also make a short YouTube description with SEO keywords and emojis for this 1979 Lincoln penny video to grab attention and boost ranking?